is the greatest moment in my life.
Hey, yo.
Evening.
How are we doing, everybody?
Oh, not too bad. How are you, Sion? I'm a bit confused at doing all this stuff.
Yeah, it's a bit different. Normally, we're naked, first of all, when we talk to each other like this. That's just, that's one difference to what we're doing today.
I thought I bought your silence on that.
Mate, nothing can buy my silence on that. Nothing can buy my silence on that. And those pictures are going to be distributed soon, I'll tell you that.
Subscribe to my Only Dance, please. I need them.
Only Dance. As everybody has probably noticed, Mr. Mags is still away on vegetable-related missions. I believe he is Gherkin gathering in Ghana this week. However, standing in or sitting in, filling in the hot seat this week for us is Mr. Dan Griffin from the UTT podcast, the Doctor Who pod, UTT Tank, and all sorts of other glorious content. Dan, how are we doing, pal? You all right?
Kablam. I'm doing very well. Cutting it finer than fine getting here, but we won't talk about the squeaky bum time of me getting on the actual call. How are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, all right, mate. All right. It's very unusual, to be fair, that somebody is later than me. Normally, it's Mags sat there, stressing and sending me a message going, "Yeah, we're live in like 90 seconds." Where the guy, sort of thing.
In my defense, I had a kebab to eat.
Well, in that case, mate, I'm fully on board with what you're saying.
And I had to finish watching the match.
Well, there is that as well, because that is kind of a big part of the show, to be fair. But anyway. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever and whenever you may be listening or watching from. This is Chain Wrestling Live with Cy and Not Mags. Dan, as I mentioned, a Ray Joe Tucker's production. I am Cy, and with me this week for the first time live on Chain Wrestling, because he has been on before, but a little while back, and it weren't live because somebody was on holiday and there's a lot of confusion, but he's been before, but this is the first time live. He is the shock to the system, to my shock to the cistern. It's been a heavy weekend, bank holiday, lots of drinking, takeaways. Oh, dear me. The NXT takeover, to my rarely sober, as again, heavy weekend. A podcaster so northern that he thinks if you pass Birmingham, you've basically then just got water and then France. Dan Griffin, my friend, how does it feel to be that side of the camera, live on a Chain Wrestling on a Monday night?
As with most other things in my life, it's deeply confusing, but I'll just roll with it, do my best, and hopefully something good will come out.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Yes. So, Chain Wrestling Live. As we can see already, there's somebody in the chat over an hour before we went live, mate. Somebody in the chat an hour before we went live, and it was just our good buddy Chris Bellis saying he might join us, but he's currently editing one of the shows he does with our good friend Scottish Danny. So hopefully we'll see him around later on, Chris. We have Morty in the chat as well. Getting in there just before the wife look. It's Monday. You know what that means. Straight Morty, in there.
Quick on the draw. Not the first time apparently that he's got there before a female.
Well, so I've heard tales, but obviously we can't confirm or whatever. So
couldn't begin to speculate.
All speculation. Sharon there as well, our glorious guest host from last week. Absolutely fantastic job she did too. It's Monday night. You know what that means. Indeed. We have here Scottish Danny, our good buddy there, saying, has he tuned into the Doctor Who podcast this week?
Hang on, that's not been live all these weeks, has it?
I hope not, mate, because some of the stuff we do off camera.
Laughing for 3 minutes at penis jokes, for instance.
Well, so. There is that. Yeah. This week we had, it's in the outtakes. Anyone who listens to the Doctor Who podcast, make sure you do stick around to the end of the show, because there's bits and bobs that me and Dan sort of take out and stick to the end and so on. This week we had a complete diversion away from topic and argued about cheese and pineapple for ages.
I still maintain, what was the point of eating the pineapple when you've got the cheese right there on the stick?
I'm not going to go into this again. It's pointless. It's irrelevant.
It's my bubbly chocolate. I will die on this pointless hill.
I'll tell you what, let's get through the chat and then we'll throw it out there to the CWF and then we'll do our Hall of Fame and so on and we'll go back and see what they think, okay?
All right, yeah, I'm prepared to get slaughtered.
Sharon says, hi, Dan.
Hello, Sharon, my love. I hope I can fill your boots from last week. You were fantastic.
Well, heels, you're quite good in, aren't you?
God, no, Chris, if I wear high heel sides of me, I'd strike oil.
Morty says that he's got Mags hunting him down a moolie next week. I don't really know what that means.
No, neither do I.
Yes, indeed. Okie doke. Spoiler alert here. Even though we do try and steer clear of any sport that's going on, the wife is just letting me know Ronnie O'Sullivan won the world title. So there we go. Thanks for that, Shah.
Oh, good.
Fitch, the hairy housewife, he says, don't forget to mention Dan's biggest podcast appearance, Biscuit Vision. Indeed, gotta go check that out. It's all over the place. There's so many people sharing that online. I'm amazed it doesn't pop up on my timeline literally every hour.
That was an absolute cluster.
But a fun one, mate. A fun one.
Oh, yeah.
Connor McCabe in the chat. Hello, Dan and Si. Hiya, Connor. Good evening, my friend.
Connor,
how
mate.
are you doing? We've got people here already now. Sharon saying pineapple wins. Scottish Danny is saying cheese and so on, arguing about what we've just spoke about without actually knowing what the argument's about. People are already picking their sides.
But Scottish Danny's right. The Council of Dan stands firm in support of cheese.
Well, there we go.
And Fitch, I'm not even going to, don't even click on that next comment from Fitch. You can absolutely go fuck yourself, Fitch. The more you tell me to subscribe to your channel, I'm not going to do it.
And as you there now drop the F-bomb, I want to wish my 12-year-old daughter there. Hello, Charlie, she says in the brilliant timing. Trust me, she hears worse at home. Normally from Sharon towards me, to be fair.
Well, you are a fucking delinquent, as anybody who
mate.
listens to the waiting room will know.
Yeah, apparently just because I like cream soda. Go figure. Yes, anyway, so very quickly, people in the CWF, in the chat, and people listening to the audio podcast version later in the week, if you want to get in contact on Twitter. Dan and I had a little discussion on the Doctor Who pod this week. It just kind of ran away with us, really. And it basically was, you know, when you have a party, I suppose it's very 80s thing as well, Dan, isn't it? Something that we remember from when we were kids.
80s, 90s, yeah.
Yeah. And you had like the cocktail sticks with a little bit of cheese and a little bit of pineapple on. Dan said on the Doctor Who pod, he would eat the cheese and leave the pineapple. And I find that completely baffling because I didn't have pineapple a lot when I was a kid. So when we had the cheese and pineapple, I was like, oh, so I'd have the pineapple and leave the cheese. So then we got into this massive argument about cheese versus pineapple and so on. And Dan even said about me, so at daft, like I would have pineapple on a pizza with no cheese, which is just ridiculous. Yes, Fitch in the chat, spot on. The pineapple hedgehog. Exactly. That's exactly what we're referencing. Now, ultimately, we decided to leave it because, as I said on the podcast, this isn't very Doctor Who-y. So we go. It didn't really seem to fit with what we were doing, to be fair. So we left it there. But if people in the chat want to carry on this argument, you know, I mean, I would eat both, but, you know, is it weird that Dan would eat the cheese and leave the pineapple?
I mean, look at me. Is it weird that I left the pineapple in pursuit of more cheese?
Well, you know, I imagine pineapple could be, I mean, obviously it's fruit, but it's like got natural sugar in, so that's not great if you eat too much of that either, is it?
It's probably better for you than cheese, but I don't know.
No, I'm not sure.
Let's not start doing this again.
No, let's not. Morty there in the chat as well saying, whoa, I left the cheese. Yeah, only if I'd had too much. I love cheese. I eat cheese all the time.
Right, no, shut up, Sam. There is never too much cheese. There are 4 stages of there are 4 stages of eating cheese.
Okay.
Eating cheese, still eating cheese, ate too much cheese, bit more cheese.
Right, okay.
The 4 stages of eating cheese, particularly at Christmas.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I get on board with that. But when I was younger, the pineapple was the thing. The cheese was like, well, I have cheese in my sandwiches at school every day. I'm not too fussed on that. So I just eat loads of pineapple and leave the cheese. You know?
We're doing it again.
We are. And to be honest, you know, we don't normally run past 2 hours maximum on this show. So we probably want to leave that alone. People in the CWF, speak amongst yourselves on that one. We'll dip and dive in there as we go along. But yes, there we go. Oh, how's your week been then, Dan? What have you been up to, mate? Anything good? Bank holiday weekend and so on?
Oh, my bank holiday Monday consisted of a 9-hour shift because work is work. Let's just go with that. I don't want to say anything that could get me in trouble. Okay. But I was at my mates in Grimsby over the weekend, and we went to a deathmatch tournament in Hull. So I got to go to some live wrestling. Fantastic. Saw some blood and guts. I put a few clips on my Twitter there. and it was a wonderfully violent time.
Fair enough, mate.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I've
And
never
to be
seen a
fair,
deathmatch.
to be fair, wonderfully violent time could just describe Hull on a Saturday night, but there we are.
I've never seen a deathmatch live. I mean, I've seen like no DQs but my local company, as I said, it's the one that I go to the most. Is kind of it's a little bit. It's not that environment. It's more family friendly. So if they put on like a no DQ or something like that, and they bring the bag out that you would assume would be glass or thumbtacks, they pour it out on the mat, and it's bits of Lego, which gets a laugh from the parents because everyone knows what it's like to step on a Lego and all this sort of stuff. It's not as extreme as the stuff you're describing, so it's a little bit different,
Yeah, well, in this one, I've got a clip on my phone that I'm going to put online at some point. There's one already there where Alex Colon and Lou Nixon just spend 38 seconds just breaking light tubes over each other's heads.
Bloody hell.
And then there's another one where a full solid minute of Alex Colon, because it was a tournament, just breaking light tubes over every bit of Big Joe that he can find, over his head, over his back, over his arms, over his legs. It was brutal. But then the most hardcore thing in the world today, got to work, thought, what's that noise? Why do I sound like a tap dancer? I had thumbtacks in my shoes and I didn't even notice.
Brilliant. That's class. Awesome.
Yeah.
A little memento you didn't realise you had.
Not as good as the last time when I went home with glass in my beard.
Okay. That's a bit concerning. Especially if you're not in the match. But why would you be getting glass on you? That's a bit of a worry, isn't it?
Because when those tubes pop, they go and just go everywhere. There's the dust gets in your throat, the glass gets in everywhere. It's brilliant.
It does sound it. I'm gonna have to, next time I come up to York, maybe we're gonna have to try and do something like that.
We'll nip over to Leeds for a ride show. There's usually a death match or two on.
Oh, Leeds though, mate.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. I'll tell you something that is bad. I'll tell you something that is that bad. And that is what we throw in to the Hall of Fame every week. Disgusting, awful, shameful, cringe-worthy wrestling gimmicks. So I think we should jump across to that now, Dan, and chuck a few more down there to never be seen again.
If I may say so, the
Yes.
segue on that. Well done, you're getting better.
Mate, I'm nothing but professional, or nothing including professional, or I don't know.
Slightly professional-ish.
I'm not at all, mate. I'm not at all. Yes, the Hall of Lame, where horrific, embarrassing gimmicks who make us cringe, whether it's bad match types, bad wrestlers, bad gimmicks, bad storylines, anything at all, hopefully get thrown to be never seen again. What you got for us, Dan?
I'm going to Japan, actually, for this one.
Japan, okay.
Yeah. I'm going for the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, the reigning and defending IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, Kazuchika Okada, in his TNA gimmick of Okato, because this is a lesson in how to get a promising up-and-coming talent catastrophically wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So TNA pulled a bit of a coup. They got a young Okada on excursion. He was quite highly touted. Companies in Mexico wanted him. Companies they wanted him to tour Britain. But TNA got him. Thought brilliant. And what do they do with him? They dress him up like the Green Hornet's sidekick, Kato, call him Okato or Okato, and put him in an absolute wet fart of a gimmick, trying to cash in of the popularity of the Green Hornet movie, a movie that had no frigging popularity to begin with. I know you won't have seen it because it's a superhero thing or a comic book movie, and you don't.
I'm familiar with it, but yeah, I've not seen it, but I'm familiar with it. Yeah,
the movie was wank, the gimmick was wank, and this was a guy who's gone on to be one of the greatest of all times, and he's still in his early 30s. His level of talent is insane, and they put a stupid, weird little mask on him, had him be a sidekick for I think it was Samoa Joe, and it was so bad that it basically soured New Japan for years on sending them any talent.
Yeah, and rightfully so. Yeah. Especially when you look at how highly regarded Okada was, even at that point in his career, and they had other options for his excursion, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They had all the options. TNA talked the way into it, but as was common for the time, TNA talked a big game and just couldn't deliver.
Yeah. Scottish Danny in the chat there confirms, yep, Samoa Joe. Scottish Danny's a complete TNA freak. He adores TNA. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I could count on him.
Yeah, not a good look. Not a good look. I mean, it is an incredibly TNA-esque thing to do, isn't it? To try and capitalize on a movie's popularity that's not that popular.
Yeah.
That's just TNA all over.
The try and be topical and just do it in the, I was going to say, sort of the most convoluted, but also least likely to be sued way.
Mm.
You know, they can't go for anything too mainstream because it'll be an easy target for the lawyers. So we'll go for this Green Hornet movie that doesn't seem to be getting a lot of attention. There's a reason it's not getting a lot of attention. Much like the gimmick you produced, it's shit.
Yes, indeed. I'm glad that didn't sort of trash his career full stop. You know, I'm glad that he sort of went on to do what, because Okada's fantastic. I could watch that guy wrestle all day. He's amazing. So,
I love him. I've had the good fortune of seeing him live, and there's just an aura about the guy. Even as far back in the venue as I was, you know, several step rows back and all that, and he was just incredible.
Yeah, wow, fantastic. Yeah, totally on the money, mate. Exactly the sort of thing that deserves a spot in the Chain Wrestling Hall of Fame. 100% agree with you there. I'm gonna go a little further back in time and have.
Would it be the 80s?
No, no, haha. There we go. No, I'm gonna go a little further back in time to the early 90s. So not far off the 80s, to be fair. And I'm going to take a look at a character in an era of the WWF that was full of shite gimmicks for the shite wrestlers. But honestly, this is like, you know, pick and mix for the Hall of Fame in this era, sort of 93, 94 sort of time. And one of the first people I put in was Max Moon. That was the same sort of era we're talking about now. There was a guy named Norman the Lunatic who wrestled in WCW, who was quite a big fellow, quite a scruffy looking fellow, and so on. He, after leaving WCW, he bumped around a little bit, did a few indies and so on. Signed for the WWF, had a quite terrible gimmick when he first signed there as an evil monk, Friar Ferguson and so on. When that didn't work out and there was complaints made by certain church groups, this individual went away. And as the WWF does, repackages them and brings them back. And Vince McMahon, in all of his glory, promoted and gave to us the Bastion Booger. Now,
oh dear.
If you've not seen this guy, first of all, normally I would say if you've not seen this individual, Google them, but do it, you know, when you've not, you know, not on a full stomach and all this sort of stuff. Make sure you're not feeling jippy and you're okay, because the whole gimmick was basically set up to mock the person playing Bastion Booger. Believe it or not. I mean, I can't imagine why Vince would be that, you know, it's not like he's got previous, is it? You know, but yes, the guy was incredibly overweight, and I'm allowed to point that sort of stuff out because I am overweight. So there we go. But he was grossly overweight. He had bad teeth. He looked a mess. So they dressed him up in ring gear that was grey and dingy and purposely slightly too small for him, so bulges and bits of him were kind of falling out of the ring gear and so on, and had him work in that gimmick. And he had a couple of storylines where he fancied Luna Vachon and tried to kiss her, and Bam Bam Bigelow got cross with him about it and so on, which is obviously the premise of every great wrestling angle in the history of wrestling. So, you know, I can't see why that didn't work. But he also had moments where he couldn't wrestle in certain shows because of a stomach upset, because he'd been eating crap all day and he had diarrhea at this one event and couldn't wrestle and all this, and that was part of the guy's gimmick. He missed the 1994 War Rumble because, well, there was a gap basically. The countdown happened, the buzzer went off, nobody came out. It was a tease that Bret Hart was missing it because he was injured. When Bret did come out, the commentators explained, oh, that was supposed to be Bastion Booger, who was incredibly unwell because of his bad diet. And the whole gimmick, the whole run as Bastion Booger was literally set up, in my eyes anyway, and in the eyes of many, to basically dig this guy out for being a bit of a mess. So, I mean, I don't understand how somebody who frequently suffers from stomach upsets and diarrhea, I don't see how that could get anybody over. I don't understand how that can be motivation for a wrestling gimmick. But there we go. That's my entrant this week, my friend, the Bastion Booger.
I'll tell you exactly how it becomes a gimmick. Because Vince finds poo hysterical.
Well, yeah.
As intelligent as he undeniably is, He's got a similar sense of humour to me. Difference is, I wouldn't book it in a wrestling angle.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Sometimes I look at this guy and I just think, how have you made so much money with some of the stuff he comes out with, you know?
Yeah, I mean, one of my contestants for going on here was farting Natalia.
Oh my God, yes.
If you remember that. Yeah, farting Natalia was going to be on there. And I'm sure that is there just because Vince likes the noise the fart machine's made.
Maybe. He'd love this gimmick then, because we got a fart noise right in the jingle.
Yeah. Well, that's why Vince watches every week.
Yeah.
You had Bastion Booger there, and he looked like a washed out, low rent, gimpy version of Demolition, didn't he? He was we couldn't even afford the face paint. He was utterly terrible.
It wasn't good. I mean, put it this way: when he made his debut, obviously these guys wrestle and they squash people, don't they? That's the nature of the beast in 92, 93, and so on. You would have superstars and Wrestling Challenge and Primetime Wrestling, or whichever way the shows were those years. And they would squash people, and then the first person of name value they would face would be a Coco Beware or a Virgil, and then they would beat them, and that's how they would kind of build them up the card. Bastion Booger had one or two matches and then lost to Virgil on television. That's how much hope they gave this guy.
Oh, I mean, fair play to Virgil. He had a solid 6 months in 1992, but
good drop.
Yeah, half decent punches.
Yeah,
about 15,000 names in WCW.
Yeah. He was part of the NWO as well. Well, I suppose everyone was part of the. I think you and me were part of the NWO at one stage.
I feel bad ragging on Virgil though at the minute after all the sort of revelations about his health and that came out.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you say that we just spent the last 10 minutes ragging on Bastion Booger, and he's actually dead. Is that worse?
He's been dead a good 12 years.
So it's okay, is it?
Yeah. Plus we're fat lads as well, so it's kind of
I suppose. Yeah, fair enough.
If anything, all it takes is a beard trim. I could cosplay as Bastion Booger.
There you go, sorted. Halloween special this year. That's you. That is. I want to picture you as you will win the prize, mate. If you just have that was the end of the contest.
Oh God, that'd take a lot of spandex.
Yeah, that's it, mate. That's it. In the chat then, before we get on to our non-wrestling topic, we have Scottish Danny again saying we can buy the Green Hornet in CX right now for under £1, which is
you'd still be overpaid.
Yeah, they'd still be ripping you off. Bastion Booger made appearances on the 15th anniversary of Raw in full gimmick.
See, I had that on DVD. I don't remember it.
No,
but then again, that was a lot of years and a lot of beers ago. So
yeah, what are they on now? Like 20? Well, they've passed 25, aren't they now? 25 anniversary.
It's knocking on the 30th anniversary next year.
Yeah, and Morty, just to sort of put our minds at rest, says here he's passed the 10-year mark since he passed away. So apparently he's fair game. So there we go. That's the cutoff. Apparently, a decade, and we can make jokes. So.
I know who else is dead that I can take the piss out
of. Oh man. Okie doke then. Shall we get to our non-wrestling topic, Dan?
Do let's.
And I'll tell you what, that was very, very close to being the first time I called you Mags by accident on this show. That was nearly it then, mate. That nearly slipped in there. That's what she said. Our non-wrestling topic this week. We asked for any kind of stories to do with skiving or bunking off or getting caught bunking off, trying to take time off when you shouldn't for any particular reason, reasons why, great days you've had doing it, and so on. And we had quite a few come in of different situations, different natures, and so on, which is fantastic. You've not seen any of these, I'm guessing, Dan?
I read one or two, but like I say, my memory's awful, so I've already forgotten them.
No problem. We will start very quickly on WhatsApp, and we will start with my youngest, Charlie, who sent me a message after she read the status online, and I explained to her what it meant and so on. My 12-year-old says, she's got a bad ankle. She says here, I use my bad ankle a lot in PE to get out of doing anything. Fantastic, Charlie.
Fair play to him.
Should you be admitting that to your dad, really? And should I be saying it live on a YouTube show now?
Probably not.
Probably not. And when she was in junior school, She used to act ill all the time to get out of school, and she would tell me and Sharon that she had a stomachache or a headache, and then wait for Sharon to do the school run, and then get on her phone and be right as rain. So, yes, there we go.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Yes. Matt Willis, also on WhatsApp, he says here, he's never really bunked off, but other than when he got addicted to the internet in sixth form and used to spend 7 hours a day in the library on a computer just surfing the net rather than doing his actual coursework and so on that he should have been doing. He says he bunked every single lesson in theory. He was there, but not doing what he should have been doing. That's
severe.
Yeah.
Severe, dear me.
But I mean, my question straight away was, what were you looking at then? 6-7 hours on the internet is a long old time, on a school computer as well. Let's bear that in mind, right?
Yeah, you're not going to be accessing any materials that a teenage boy would normally access if he had 7 hours on the internet. Well,
this is it. He said he would look at anything and everything, but there was filters in place to stop certain things popping up, suspect things popping up. And he said there was issues even searching their own county, Essex, as it had SEX in the word, and that would get blocked by default. So he says chat rooms were also blocked.
Was Matt trying to memorize the entirety of Wikipedia?
Maybe. Yeah, I'll have to get more from you about that, Mr. Willis. I know you're not in the chat tonight. You're always engaged this evening, but you said you're going to listen on the podcast version later on in the week when it comes out. So yeah, drop the show a tweet at @chain_wrestling or get in contact as you have done here and let us know exactly where you're coming from with that. Yeah, definitely.
If we can stay on WhatsApp, sorry, I've just had one in right now from my brother who's watching live. He's not in the chat. Hiya, Cam. How are you doing, Spud?
Brilliant stuff.
He once put his forehead under a radiator to fake a temperature and get the day off to be looked after by my nan because he knew he'd spend all day eating sandwiches because she'd just make him whatever food he wanted.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. That's forethought as well, isn't it? That's not just, oh, I feel a bit jippy. That's, making sure the temperature feels warm and everything. That's good stuff.
Devious.
It's pre-planning, mate. I respect that. I respect that. Fitch here at Daddy and Alfred on Twitter. He says, "This is easy." Never. No. I'm not familiar. He says, "This is easy." He used to get a small private taxi to school because he lived outside the catchment area for the buses, and it was a government cock-up. He used to wave the taxi off at the window and just tell his parents the taxi hadn't arrived. That is awesome.
Right, so when my brother's is like forward planning and quite good, that's only going to work so many times before the parents start making real complaints. The company start talking to the drivers and they said, we turned up, we got waved away. What do you want us to do? We can't just have, taxi driver can't just force a child into the taxi against his will.
No, there's laws against that, I think, isn't there?
I hope so.
I'm fairly certain anyway, in certain areas of the country. Maybe not so much in the Forest of Dean, but he says here, though, he does continue, his dad sat over the road one day before going to work and actually watched him do this. So he did get caught out.
The best part about that is I bet that Fitch's dad wasn't even sat in a car or hiding or anything like that. He was probably just in a lawn chair on the neighbour's lawn and Fitch just like wandered off and just like, oh, there's a guy in a chair over there. No, fuck off, taxi.
Brilliant stuff. James at 80s and 90s Wrestling on Twitter. He says for the 2006 World Cup, work wouldn't let him have it off. So he literally just quit and then spent the month in Germany watching the World Cup.
That is legendary. That is what a great life choice.
Yeah, 100%. That's one of those where it's a situation of you're not going to get opportunities to do that again, are you? It's literally a case of get it done and that's that. He said that he didn't give any notice. He just quit. It was a bit pricky of him, he said, but arrogance won. And then he got caught out a little because it then took him months to get another job.
Yeah, worth it though. Why not?
Yeah, think of the memories, mate. Think of the memories.
Yeah.
Watching England get knocked out again.
Yeah. I think we maybe made the quarterfinals.
Well, that's quite an achievement. Well, I suppose in recent years we haven't been too bad, but there we go. The Texas Gentleman, our good friend Tanner, Texas Gentleman _ on Twitter, he says he quit the worst job he ever had without notice. Fortunately, had another job lined up already, so would have left anyway without any regrets. He said, I asked him, was it a storm out? And he said, pretty much, but it was just kind of done over the phone. I was like, oh, okay. There we go.
Yeah. If it's not working for you, it's not working for you. Everybody's got a breaking point.
Mate, one of the greatest moments of my life was literally, well, I think one of the most satisfying moments of my life was quitting the job by doing the whole full-on, oh, fuck you then, and throwing the keys on the desk. Oh, it was such a I think I've told this story before on a really early episode of Chain Wrestling, way back in the audio days. It boiled down to, and I've got another story later on as well, similar to this, but it boiled down to having tickets to go and see somebody play live, them telling me I couldn't go. I literally threw the keys on the desk, told them to shove it, and just walked out thinking, okay, I'm going to go watch Motorhead or whatever it was. Got halfway down the stairs, realised I'd left my coat behind. I had to turn around, do that embarrassing walk, back in, and another thing whilst I grabbed my coat and then walk back out again, mate.
That's brilliant. Yeah. I've only had two proper jobs. I'm been quite long. I've had a lot of longevity in both jobs, but used to work retail. It just got so far on top of me. It was awful.
Yeah.
Really bad for mental health and all the rest of it. I'd done this interview to go be a temp, and I got a call 5 minutes before I was due to set off to tell me I'd got the job. So I was late because I was writing my notice.
Right.
Literally just handwriting it on a white piece of A4. And then walked in and said, damn, why are you late? And I was writing that.
Oh, that must have felt good.
It did. It was glorious.
Our good friend Steve-O, at Total Steve-O on Twitter, he says, you know what? He genuinely can't think of any real times he's bunked off. He said once he did bunk off one lesson with his friend who notoriously bunked off a lot, but he could tell that Steve-O wasn't comfortable. So they went back to class after 20 minutes. Okay.
I've got to be honest, he's wilder than me. You've managed to get me on the 1 week where I've got no really sort of good stories.
Oh, mate, what a disaster that is. Do you want to come back next? Scottish Danny here in the chat. And I'm going to need some more info from you, Danny, actually, whilst you're there. Filling us in a little bit here. On Twitter, Scottish Danny says he bunked off school with friends to go and see Bruce Almighty in the cinema, but they got refused entry, so they shouldn't have even bothered. Now, how come you got refused entry? Was it an age thing, or what was it? I don't understand. How did that work?
It could have been an age thing, because I know roughly how old Danny is, and I know roughly when that film came out. So if they were sort of a bit on the young looking side, it would have been an age thing, I reckon.
Baby-faced Danny wouldn't have gotten anywhere then, no?
No, I don't think he would
have. Good Cop, Bad Cop Wrestling Podcast at Good Bad Wrestle on Twitter. Always a brilliant listen. He says, it came up on Radio Techers yesterday, actually, and as it's the World Snooker Final today, it seems relevant. In 3 periods during sixth form, there were a few of them who were known to go and play snooker at the local club. The rate was cheaper at this time of day because obviously, it's working hours, so they'd sneak off and play snooker rather than spending their 3 periods when they should have been studying. So, yeah, okay, fair enough.
Fair play. You never know. Yeah, you never know. It could have been the next Ronnie O'Sullivan.
Well, potentially, yeah. Millwall Chris at Millwall Chris 1 on Twitter. He says, and he's given us specific dates here, Dan. This is like
incriminating.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally. 30th of October, 1994. He wanted to attend Nottingham Forest versus Millwall. Knew his job wouldn't give him the time off. So, in the words of Baldrick, he had a cunning plan.
This can only be gold. I feel like I need to put my feet up and just get settled in for this.
He gave his brother's hospital appointment card to a friend who worked for a printer's firm. He made a few adjustments, and lo and behold, he all of a sudden had a doctor's appointment on that day. In case you're wondering, we won 2-0. I wasn't wondering.
Nobody cares about Millwall.
Wow, that's it. I think that's fantastic. Again, it's the pre-planning that I like. I mean, just phoning in sick, I'm a bit jippy, I can't be bothered. Okay, whatever. But the pre-planning there to go and get this card made and then be, look, got an appointment and so on, that's class.
It would have probably been less effort to go to work.
Well, yeah, but he got to watch footy, so yeah.
All's well that ends well.
Yeah. Millwall Chris continues. When I was in what is now year 10 at secondary school, which is 4th year back in his day, he says, I just didn't fancy going to school. So he faked his bad asthma and took about 6 weeks off.
You get that every summer, right?
Oh man, I said to him, I messaged back, how did you fake that? What was the plan? What was the? And he said he has asthma anyway, so all he had to do was cough and wheeze a bit, tell his mum he didn't feel well, and that was that. His mum then went off to work, and he had the day to himself. Like for 6 weeks, he said you didn't need to supply a note to the school back in those days, back in the 80s, so you could just get away with it. He said, I'm not 100% sure what I did at the weekend, though. Yeah, I'm thinking, it seems very much a case of Monday to Friday, his asthma is bad.
It's very like day specific allergies and asthma attacks. That's my God. How did he pull the con for that long?
I don't know, man. I don't know. His parents must have mum must have been really super caring and worried, or they knew what he was up to and just thought sod it and carry on.
Yeah. Which one was it, Milwaukee, Chris? Come on, let us know.
Yeah, let us know, buddy. Give us a shout out. Let us know.
Did your parents love you or not?
Yeah, that's the big question we want to hear now. Did your parents care, or did they just not give a shit and just knew you were sat at home watching? What would it have been back then? TVAM and Trisha? Would that have been?
Don't know, way before my time.
Yeah, all right. Start sound like Benny Mac now. He's constantly digging me about being younger than me on the way.
I'll give over. I'm digging Millwall Chris about it.
Okay, I'll go along with that then. Yeah, you're old.
Stop taking it so personal. Oh, bless you. Poor little sigh. It's his age is getting to it.
I get it all the time at home, mate. The wife takes great pleasure in the friend of mine, Sharon, has turned 40. Doesn't look it, granted, but she's turned 40. Constantly digs me about being 41. It's not even a year's difference in our ages, but yeah, I'm ancient. Just because I got those extra few months,
Well, that's how it works.
Yeah. In the chat, then we'll have a quick look there, since that's all we have from Twitter this week. Sharon says that Charlie has stood there laughing because she's watching the show downstairs with her mum. Little shit, Sharon says. Yeah, looks like you exposed yourself a little bit there, Charlie. You've given your mum the truth behind what used to go on when you were in junior school, you little madam. Morty says Matt was on M.E. Snake, Mr. Snake. I think he's meant to. Yes, and the following comment says here, Matt was on Mr. Snake 100%. Apparently, that was a website that could get around the blockers. Where Morty continues here, you find websites in IT that would work past the blockers. He says in the chat here, Mr. Snake being one of them. I've never heard of Mr. Snake.
Me neither.
I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned to Google Mr. Snake now in 2022 because it might be a completely different site by now.
No, I heard about 17 jokes trying to force their way out of my head then, and not one of them are saying live on here.
Scottish Danny here giving us a little insight into how his mind works. He says after 3:15, all the sites were unblocked. Yeah, so you planned ahead, mate, did you? For you to know that.
Don't know if he planned ahead, but he certainly planned a whack.
Right, yeah, there we go. Morty as well says here his nephew. What the hell? His nephew faked a COVID test. His nephew faked a COVID test using orange juice. How do you use orange juice?
I'm guessing you put a couple of drops of orange juice on the thing that you put the drops of liquid on, and that must register positive.
Oh, okay. I mean, could you not just draw a line on it?
Maybe, but then you do get the discoloration as it rises to the top.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay. Fitch says here, answering a few questions about the whole waving the taxi off issue. He says his dad used to phone up loads, and they would just tell him I waved them off, and I used to argue they were lying. It went on for months. Oh my goodness,
Fitch, your dad must have been just so patient, or a little bit dense.
Yeah, maybe. What about yourself then, Dan? What have you got for us, bud? Any stories about bunking off, skiving off, or trying to sneak off somewhere to do something different?
Not really. Certainly not from my school days. I was a proper scared little twat. The only time I remember faking being ill was because I was being bullied and wanted to go home. So that's depressing. The closest I've got to it is I've said before about how I've got to go to Anthony Joshua versus Vladimir Klitschko.
Yes.
Huge boxing fight, Wembley. To do that, I had to really pull some strings because I got the call on the Friday night to say that I had a ticket if I wanted it. I had to then spend 20 minutes ringing around people to try to cover my shift because I was supposed to be working all weekend.
Okay.
And I managed to work it so that I didn't take any lunches, missed an hour of work that I'd make up at a later date, to then leave at 4 o'clock on the Saturday, get the train down to London, watch the fight, stay at my parents' flat in London, get the train back the Sunday morning, get off the train and go straight to work after being up till 3 a.m. drinking.
Nice. Were you rough?
No, I was all right because I was just buzzing for the whole atmosphere. But it was the daft thing is it was in a box at Wembley, and there was a woman in there who was like part of the hospitality staff, and her job was just to make sure that you still had beer. Right. If you were low, she just pass you another one. Like, yes, thank you. And it had its own kitchen. There was a guy in there just cranking out curries all night.
Brilliant.
It was amazing. Then the box next to us was proper weird. There was 2 celebrities in the box next to us. One of them was Peter Andre. So
it's not random at all.
It's even weirder when he was in the box there with Frank Bruno.
Okay.
But apparently,
that's 2 people you wouldn't think to be buddies, isn't it?
Yeah, but apparently Frank Bruno was there, like, reuniting with his estranged brother and all this. So a couple of people went off to get a photo with Peter Andre. I really wanted to get a photo with Frank Bruno, but I didn't want to interrupt what was going on.
This touching family reunion, and there's just you and Peter Andre popping up in the background, like, oh yeah,
photo.
Oh man, Connor in the chat here says to save me doing it. Thank you, Connor. I appreciate that. He says he's just looked up Mr. Snake, and it's safe to say I should never have Googled it. Oh, brilliant stuff.
Oh, Connor, you sweet summer child.
Yeah, there we go. I don't know if I've ever told this story on the show before. About the vegetable soup and wanting to go see Motorhead. I think it was Motorhead.
It's always Motorhead, apparently.
Well, I've seen Motorhead. Barring Wasp, I've seen Motorhead more times than any other band. So they sort of come around quite often. I mean, it's like 11, 12 times I've seen Motorhead now. So it's quite a few times. But it was Wasp or Motorhead or Saxon or someone like that. Anyway, I was going to go see somebody. And I had booked the day off. But last minute, my boss turned around and cancelled the day off, said you can't have it. Somebody else has phoned in sick and so on. And I was raging. And at this stage, I was on one hand a little bit more responsible, I guess, because I didn't want to I would have just quit my job. In previous years, more recent years, I would have just sodded it and walked out. At this stage, I was probably a little bit more responsible than I should have needed to be, potentially. But I thought, well, I've got the tickets. The train's booked. I've got to have at least a half day. So I was like, well, I want the day off. And they argued that you can't have the day off. And if you phone in sick, then we're going to have a disciplinary meeting because we know blatantly you're doing it because it's a day's holiday that you wanted and so on. And that's just the type of people that these people were that I worked for.
Assholes.
No, yeah, basically, mate, totally. So what happened was effectively, I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to get out of work. But I can't get out of work without them physically knowing that I'm unwell. So me and my mate, who, when we get together, we're kind of a bad influence on each other, really. We kind of came up with this idea of how I can convince the people who work with me that I need to go home. So I went into work that day saying I felt very poorly. Kept running off to the toilet to be sick. Etc. And I was told, nope, you're not going home. You're not going home. We know you wanted the day off. They just weren't believing me. I had a tin of vegetable soup in my bag, especially for this kind of situation. Where the toilets were in this place, it was quite a small little room. You had 2 urinals, one little privy in the corner, and then the sinks running down the side. I waited until my supervisor was in the toilet, knowing, he's going to be at the urinal or he's going to be at the sink. And there's a gap around the door of the privy. So I ran in, shut the door of the privy, started coughing, making loads of wretched noises, threw this tin of soup down the toilet, making sure I splashed a little bit on the floor as well. so you heard the noise. So when my boss turned around and was like, oh my God, he could effectively see from 3 or 4 yards away what looked like puke with chunks in and all sorts. And I'm there basically shouting, "I told you I was ill. I told you I was ill." So
bastard.
that's it. So eventually I got bleach out and told them I cleaned it all up and all that. And they were like, "Go home. You can't stay. You're poorly. It's contagious. Everyone else come down with it." Yeah. So I left there, literally took off my work t-shirt, put on my Wasp t-shirt or Saxon t-shirt or whatever it was, went straight to the bus, straight to the train station, straight off up north to watch the band. So yeah, that's one of my biggest achievements, I think, when it comes to putting the wool over someone's eyes on that level. But at the same time, I only did that because they fucked me over first.
Exactly. It's absolutely fine.
Exactly. I had a friend as well who used to save stuff on his phone. And this is relatively recent. This is in the last sort of, I say relatively recent. It would have been just before COVID. I heard what he was doing. And he used to call them like his backups in case he fancied the odd day off. So anytime that he had a flat tire, he would take a picture and then just leave it on his phone. Okay. There was an occasion where there was a pipe that split in his front garden or outside his house, and it was flooding across the floor and affecting his house and so on. He took a picture of that, and he saved up about 10 pictures of different circumstances. You know, a picture of him outside the vets with his dog and all this sort of really weird shit. And then every now and again, he just send his boss a picture and go, "Can't come in today. You know, the dog's poorly. I'm at the vets now. we think he might be think we might have to have him put down, or can't come in today. Look, here's my flat tire," which actually happened 4 months ago, but his boss wasn't to know. You know, so we had all these backup ideas and backup plans. And on one hand, I thought, you sneaky bastard. But on the other hand, I thought, that's clever.
I wouldn't have the brass balls.
No?
No, I don't think I would. Because I remember seeing a thing. It was like there's a Twitter account called Fesshole, which is like anonymous confessions.
Yeah, it's great.
And there was it's brilliant. But there was one guy on there that I've just remembered. He said, "Whenever I start a new job, I always start with all 4 grandparents alive, just in case I fancy a day off."
Yeah,
and he kills them off at every job.
Yeah, that's terrible. That is terrible.
Oh, I couldn't do it.
But at the same time, it's the foresight to have that, Oh, I couldn't have the guts to do something.
It's almost admirable. Almost.
It's intelligent, maybe not admirable, I suppose. Maybe.
Yeah, you can admire the intelligence.
Yeah, there we go. Again, the planning ahead, I enjoy.
Naturally, if anybody from either my or Si's work is listening, we would never dream of doing anything like that.
No. I actually like my job, to be fair. So
yeah, same.
That's a rarity.
I'm doing mad hours.
Yeah. Morty here has got a message for you, Dan, in the chat. He says he and Fitch are heading to a beautiful little cinema on Thursday for a date night and Doctor Strange. Get down for it if you can, Dan. You can drink beer in this cinema and you sit in armchairs.
That sounds like an everyman cinema, which it sounds good, boys. But I'm working an 11-hour shift on Thursday, so there's no chance of me getting anywhere other than home to bed.
Yeah, fair enough. Okie doke. I apologise as well, everybody, as was the case. Sorry, when Sharon was our guest host last week. I'm in charge of doing the chat and everything else. I'm kind of very new to this. So if I miss anything or I don't bring stuff up as quickly as Magsy would, I apologise in advance for that. And also, I'm realising how small this writing actually is, and I can barely read some of it.
Can I bring up anything in here? Like I can't.
Just hover over it.
Nah, it don't work.
It doesn't come up with show.
No. Well, I tried.
Okay.
That's more effort than I've put into the technology side of any other podcast I've ever been on.
To be honest, it's more effort than I've put into that for around the first 35 shows. Because I just didn't know how to do it, so I was like,
So I'm ahead of the chain wrestling curve.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely.
I've just seen the latest 2 comments from Fitch and Connor. Jesus Christ, Fitch.
I got fed up of walking one day, so I went back to my van, drove up the road, and let the tyre down. By the time I was recovered, it was time fed up of working. Sorry. By the time it was recovered, I had to go home. Oh, that was fantastic. That's good. That is good. Connor here. This happened to me back in March. I have a friend who's real good with graphic design, and what we had made him a phony cage side seats pass for the UFC Fight Night event. I don't follow.
That's incredible. So they used this person's obviously a graphic designer, so they made
Okay.
fake ringside or cage side seat passes for a UFC fight. So they made the passes at home, a bit like with the appointment card.
Okay, right.
Made them at home, looked all official, so that, yeah, you can go cage side.
And he said the staff bought it, and we got why that there, as much as the grandparents stuff, that there is like that takes balls, because if you get found out, there's no I didn't realize, or this was sorry, or if you get found out, that's it.
We just said, well, how did I get them then? Who sold me these? You know, how have I got in?
Yeah.
Especially now when you go to an event like that and they're like scanning barcodes and QR codes and all the rest of it.
Yeah, that's it. Morty here saying, I'm going to have to go. The wife is getting me to go and fetch her wine from Tesco. No worries, Morty. Catch the rest later in the week if you want, if you so desire, on the podcast.
Tell us to get her own sodding wine.
Oh, mate. Yeah.
Sorry, I had this cat and I just wanted to chuck it amongst the pigeons.
Yeah. And you did.
Yeah.
Shall we talk a little bit of wrestling, my friend?
If we have to.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Okay. Sharon's selection won the poll, which I know she was very, very, very happy about, and then didn't even bother watching the match with me. Makes no sense at all. But at the same time, when we were talking about it earlier on, she did explain that she has seen this match already 4 or 5 times. So for Sharon, that's a lot to have gone back and watched the same match again. So, yeah, I mean, it's and there we go in the chat there, Sharon shouting out Adam Cole, baby. Yes, indeed. What a star that man is.
Yeah.
The match that won was the Undisputed Era versus Team Ciampa from NXT TakeOver WarGames 2019. I've got a few questions, first of all, Dan, before we sort of dive into it a little bit. One, NXT, not so much now because it's a different product now to what it was back in the day, so to speak. But this sort of time, the Undisputed Era sort of time, and when Nakamura was in and out and so on, is NXT something you watched a great deal of?
Oh yeah, I was a religious watcher of NXT at this point. Only really fell off during the empty arena shows, but when it went to 2 hours, that's when it started to lose me, because it was on BT and then it wasn't on the network until a little while later, and that whole move, just the quality of the show started to dip, and it just wasn't the same anymore, and it just sort of lost its steam over time. But this was still sort of one of the last gasps of really good NXT for me.
Yeah. Okay. And I suppose, two more questions before we dive on in. War Games itself has a concept. Now, obviously, it's an old Jim Crockett Promotions, I suppose, concept, match type, and then it was used in WCW as well. And then, obviously, it was revived in NXT, but the NXT version is different to a traditional War Games match in that you have pinfalls here. You didn't in the original ones and so on. What are your thoughts on War Games in general? And have you seen many of the old classics or anything?
I've got the DVD box set of War Games. So
okay.
The ones that WWE deemed as the best or the most unique versions of War Games. I've had that, watched it a couple of times. But the thing I find is I watch these matches, I love watching them. I love the violence of some of the old ones and how bloody it is.
Yeah.
I can never remember exactly who's in each iteration of the match.
Okay.
For some reason. I don't know why. It just always escapes me. The one that's just because it's the one I've watched most recently, apart from this one, the Russo's Revenge Triple Cage War Games.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Oh God. If nothing else, but for the iconic commentary line when Scott Steiner's got a pipe in his hand because they've got the second level with all the weapons. And somebody, I think Schiavone says, is there anything scarier than Scott Steiner with a lead pipe? And Mark Madden pipes up, yeah, microphone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love them. They're absolutely insane. The whole 2 rings and the cage looked amazing. About when they used to have the ceiling on it, though, and you had like guys who were like 6'6" plus, trying to do these big power moves and just getting hampered. So you've got like I don't know, like Sid trying to just like military press someone, and he gets him to out there.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Sid.
It's better without the roof for me.
He tried to powerbomb Brian Pillman in '91, and
Yes.
Pillman sort of made contact with the roof, and then basically Sid just damn near killed the guy.
Yeah,
You know, dropped him right on his head and neck and so on. So yeah, it was a bit restrictive. But I mean, way back, a long time ago, when I used to still do the SJP wrestling podcast, episode number 1 was all things war games, and Magsy, our good friend, who helped me a great deal getting into this whole podcasting world. He was my first guest on my own show when I used to do that, and we basically watched every single war games match and then spoke about them, and then picked our favorites and so on. So we watched all of them in the course of literally from I think it's '87. It starts off in Jim Crockett Promotions, right the way through. All the way through WCW up to these NXT ones. We watched all of them in the space of a few days, ready to record this show. What you notice is they all do really kind of follow the same format.
The heels have to have the advantage.
Yeah, when it used to be down as a coin toss to decide who was the team that had the advantage. Man, the Four Horsemen in the 80s and early 90s and so on, JJ Dillon, the Four Horsemen's manager, he should be picking the lottery numbers all the time. Because that guy never lost a coin toss.
I mean, talk about
this guy alive.
That would only work in the era of kayfabe, when it's alive and well. There'll be people, there'll be people frothing them out saying, "Oh, if they won another coin toss, it must be rigged. It's got to be rigged. The cheaters, and giving it all that."
Yeah. I mean, for me, I love both incarnations of war games. I love the modern day war games because they have took it to another level, as we'll see when we talk about this match in a moment. But the classic war games for me, I'll always come back to because it is what I love. It's that old Jim Crockett Promotions, NWA, sort of smoky arenas, a bit murky.
I knew you were going to say smoky arenas. I was just about to say the same thing.
Yeah. Also, on that note, then, in this match, obviously, one team is the Undisputed Era, who I really liked the Undisputed Era. I'm a big fan of having stables, and these guys I thought were very good at what they did. Where do you place the Undisputed Era in comparison to maybe some of the other well-known big-name stables, like the Horsemen, the NWO, and so on? Because I think in NXT, they were really groundbreaking.
In NXT, the big fishes,
Mm-hmm.
They had a little bit of an impact on the main roster, as plays into this match, in fact. But it was always confined to NXT, and at that time, it was always the developmental brand.
Yeah.
So I can't put them in the top 5 of factions.
Mm-hmm.
I'd struggle to put them in the top 10.
Oh, okay.
If we're talking like the whole of wrestling, and we're including factions in WCW and some of the territory days, or even factions in Britain or Japan, Mexico, anywhere like that.
Yeah.
I can't put them top 10, but they'd probably make the top 20.
Okay. For me, match quality, they're up there.
Oh, physical. That's not to run down the physical abilities, because they are ridiculous, most of them. And
yeah.
of all of them, in terms of in-ring style, I love Kyle O'Reilly.
Oh, yeah, I'm a big fan as well.
He's my favorite. The strikes and the sort of the martial arts things, but I like that anyway because it looks real. Everything he does looks like it hurts, probably because it does. He's just fantastic. Bobby Fish, very much the same vein. He's just not got that sort of charisma that O'Reilly has behind him, all that fire. Roddy Strong, again, just ridiculous technician and how he works everything into a backbreaker. It's ridiculous, but again, from what I've seen, and I've not seen any of his ROH stuff, but he just doesn't quite have that spark.
Right, yeah.
Whereas Adam Cole is obviously very talented, but he just goes a little. It's well documented. I'm not the biggest Kenny Omega or Young Bucks fan.
Okay.
And Adam Cole just goes a bit too far that way for me. But I prefer Adam Cole to Kenny Omega or the Young Bucks, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. See, I'm a big fan of all those guys.
Don't get me wrong. I can't disparage their physical abilities or anything. I have just never once given a shit about anything they did, apart from Omega when he was in the latest Golden Lovers storyline when he was in Japan. And that was because I cared more about Ibushi.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
It's a bit like the comparison I always make is Omega to me is like Mark Andrews. Incredibly talented, can do anything physically in the ring and stuff that will make you go, wow. But there's no emotional connection. It's like watching fireworks.
Okay.
Great while they're going on. And then when they stop, you turn around and go, right, then what are we doing now?
Okay, right. See, I love Kenny Omega. I think the guy's absolutely fantastic. But again, that's why wrestling's fantastic, because, people have different tastes. I love Brock Lesnar. My wife freaking hates him.
I love Brock Lesnar.
And speaking of my wife, Sharon there saying, I thought I liked you, Dan.
You do like me, Sharon. We're not going to fall out over something as silly as wrestling.
No, not like those idiots on Twitter.
Pimple dicks.
Yeah, exactly. Effectively, what we have here is the Undisputed Era versus Team Ciampa. But Team Ciampa is a man down, and they've extended an invite to somebody to complete their team, but we don't know exactly who when you go into the event. And if you were watching the television and you kind of were a bit switched on, you could probably have figured it out, I guess. But it still wasn't, it wasn't like, you knew who was going to be the surprise at the Royal Rumble. It wasn't like you knew Cody was definitely going to turn up at WrestleMania this year. It was that thing of, you might have an idea, but there was options, wasn't there, Dan?
There were, yeah. I mean, it could have been one of any number of people, but I remember watching this at the time and just absolutely losing my mind.
Yes.
At the surprise entrance, but we'll get to that.
One thing I do like about the Undisputed Era, especially, is just how freaking cool they look here. Because they all come out, they all are slightly different, but they've all got the gold. They're the tag team champions, the North American title, the NXT title, the whole Adam Cole Bebe thing, the music. Oh man, this is up there for me as one of the best entrance themes that WWE or NXT or whatever have produced.
Yeah, it sticks in your head whether you want it to or not. So when the face, it's brilliant. You can, you've got it in your brain, and then when they heel, you're thinking, why is it in my head?
Yeah,
what's the point of it? And they had a slightly uncoordinated group pose, but the important thing is they nailed the boom. They got that down to a T. And at this point, with the entrances were going on, I realised how much I'd missed Mauro Ranallo and Nigel McGuinness on commentary, because they're the first two voices that I heard. And I don't mind Beth Phoenix's commentary, but the combination of her and Ranallo tended too often to get into a shouting match to see who could be louder. And that could get a bit annoying, but I didn't notice it in this match, thankfully.
You broke up a little bit then, Dan. Sorry. We got Beth Phoenix's commentary and so on.
Oh, yeah. I quite like Beth Phoenix's commentary in of itself, but her and Ranallo just too often ended up in a shouting match.
Yeah, he's still breaking up. He's still a bit robot underwater, as we refer to it as, isn't it? That,
Is that any better?
I can hear you now. You're frozen, but I can hear you.
Yeah, well, I've turned my camera off, so the CWF has spared my hairy mug.
It's just me then, just going to be looking at me. I mean, you're still on my screen, so we get to look at a still image of you by the looks of it, mate.
Oh, well, that's fine.
Oh, you've gone. There we are. It says in the stream with audio only. So there we go. Everyone can just look at me, and it's almost like I've got two different voices now.
The star of the show, Cy the ventriloquist.
Oh, Sharon in the chat, controversial take here, Dan. She says she doesn't get that. Never a huge fan of the Undisputed Era entrance theme.
It's fine,
really?
Sharon. You're entitled to your own opinion.
I love it. It was my ringtone on my phone for ages. It was well, it wasn't my ringtone. It was the music that woke me up in the morning.
Maybe that's why. Maybe Sharon's just heard it too much.
Yeah, potentially. Adam Cole's entrance theme then in AEW. What are your thoughts on that one? Because it's very close to the Undisputed Era, isn't it?
It's good. Yeah, I like it. It's not. I can't say it's any better or any worse. It's all on a par. It's both very good.
Yeah. Okay. Ciampa's got a great theme as well when he comes out, and how awesome did he look with that mask on and so on?
Deliciously evil. Really, very, very good. I miss watching Ciampa regularly. He was one of my favourites.
Yeah, he was great. Yeah, really good. And the whole stuff with DIY, the whole stuff with when they split as well, and you had the feud between the two of them. Some absolutely incredible matches there as well, wasn't there?
Oh, well, Ciampa and Gargano were the foundation of NXT for so long. That feud and friendship and whatnot was an absolute saga and just so good. And it's kind of a shame that the last match that I remember them having or tuning into was that attempted cinematic match that was just a bit of a damp squib.
Okay.
I don't know
That
if you
doesn't
remember
ring
that.
too much of a bell for me, to be fair.
It was early days pandemic, and obviously it was empty arena. So they tried to do Ciampa Gargano as like an unsanctioned cinematic style match.
Right.
But unlike like in TNA when they had the ultimate deletion and things like that, there was a bit too much wrestling for it to be cinematic, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
No,
they confined it to the arena, so it wasn't like when Edge faced was it Randy Orton and they went all over the building and they could film it in segments.
Yeah.
The match happened and they may have redone spots, but it was all just with a wrestling ring in the middle of a room, and it just didn't quite work.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I suppose the whole pandemic wrestling side of things, it was trial and error, wasn't it? Everyone was doing different things and trying to see what worked and what didn't. I mean, for me, the Edge and Randy Orton match, that didn't work because it was just so long and dragged out, and the crowd, there was no audience. It just didn't work for me, you know?
And there's only so long you can hear commentators saying, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah.
In that fake, like soft, fake concern, soft tone.
Yeah.
But then you got stuff like the Money in the Bank matches running side by side, the men's and women's, and the racing to the top of Titan Towers, and you've got AJ Styles and whoever, it might have been Daniel Bryan fighting into Vince's office.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and all that stuff.
It was quite comedy-esque, wasn't it? That Money in the Bank, and I didn't mind that too much.
And I loved it. And Otis won.
Oh yeah, that bit I weren't too sure about. But
they dropped the ball on Otis. Otis and Mandy Rose.
Yeah,
could have been fantastic. And then the writer who was in charge of that storyline got fired, and that was that. They could have had a Dusty Rhodes-esque babyface in Otis.
Yeah, I suppose.
And they fucked it.
I mean, nowhere near as good as Dusty though. But,
That's why I said esque.
Okay. The match begins with Kyle O'Reilly in first, and he's up against Ciampa for the first 5 minutes, as is WarGames tradition.
It was Roddy Strong in first, wasn't it?
Sorry, Roddy Strong. Yes, I've got my notes all mixed up here. Yeah, Kyle O'Reilly starts. Oh my goodness, what a mess I've made.
Roddy Strong goes in first with Ciampa.
Yes.
Ciampa goes in with his camo crutch looking like an injury-prone doomsday prepper.
Yeah, and then he doesn't want the crutch, and they kind of throw it away, don't they?
Well, because Roddy wouldn't get in unless Ciampa laid the crutch down.
Yeah.
So Ciampa lays the crutch down, Roddy gets in and says, do you really think I need that to beat you? No, neither of us have it. Because why not?
Yeah.
Rather than doing the heel thing of taking the crutch and beating the piss out of him with it.
See, this is the funny thing as well with this match in particular, and I suppose WarGames in general as well. It's this first 5 minutes, to me, it feels like you are literally just killing time to get through to when more people come in. And it don't matter how good the guys are in the ring. And I'm the same when I've watched, the likes of Sting or the Horseman or whatever back in the day. You are just waiting for that 5 minutes to pass, I feel.
Yeah, you are a bit, but I think with this they did quite a good job of just going at it quick from the get-go. As soon as Strong got in, chucked the crutch out, he failed with the cheap shot, and they're going for it. Ciampa's hitting big clotheslines. You're getting launched into the cage. It's back and forth. At one point, Ciampa tucked Roddy's head into the turnbuckle and hit like a running knee strike, which looked brutal. So, as much as these first 5 minutes always feel a bit of a drag and a bit pointless, they did a very good job with it. Like, you had Strong blocking the fairy tale ending, reversing it into a gut buster, and all. They timed it all very, very well.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Kyle O'Reilly is then in the ring, isn't he? That's how I confused myself with my own writing there. And there was a cool spot for that when you've got the sort of almost 2-on-1 where O'Reilly is holding. No, sorry. Yeah, O'Reilly is holding Ciampa, and Strong is running from one side of the ring to the other and back again and back again and back again and striking forearms every time he passes Ciampa.
Yeah,
That was so simple, but it's brilliant, isn't it?
I was knackered just watching Roddy Strong. It was just phenomenal. It's backwards and forwards. It's a bit like when I see Rocky Romero do the forever clotheslines in the corner. It's just constant motion and impact. And then they took it into a Uranagi backbreaker, and then Kyle O'Reilly drops the knee on him.
Yeah.
And it's timed perfectly, just so they're having a beat down the stomp just as Dijakovic comes in. Now, Dijakovic is another one I think they could have done so much more with in NXT. A guy of that size and presence and agility and ability. How do you not do great things with him when you've got Keith Lee right there? I know they had a couple of good matches. I think NXT Portland, just before the pandemic, they had an absolute banger of a match. But they could have been like, it could have been Godzilla versus Kong for that like sort of monster movie destruction derby. Just them having matches. You don't need them every takeover or even every, especially not every week. But they could have had like a career feud against each other.
See, this is funny because, and I'm going to constantly butcher this guy's name, as you're fully aware, Dan. Whenever I try and pronounce anything, slightly not, my native tongue on the Doctor Who pod. Dijakovic, right? I don't remember anything about this guy.
See, I've seen these two, Lee and Dijakovic, on the Indies wrestling. They've just fought all over, and what they did in NXT was good. What they did on the Indies, particularly in AAW, who unfortunately don't have an on-demand service or anything like that.
Right. Okay.
What they did there was better. These two are they're just magic together. Like guys that big, as a spectacle, guys that big should not be able to move the way they do.
That is one thing I did pick up on. When he got in the ring, obviously the guys, the Undisputed Era are not particularly big fellas, are they? And they're all of a similar build, similar size, give or take.
If you believe WWE, they're all 6 foot.
Well, yeah. But they're up to like literally sort of chest level on this fella. And he's throwing them around like they are nothing. And that was impressive. I'm watching the guy come down. I'm like, okay, the name rings a bell, but I wouldn't be able to pick him out, like a picture of him as being this individual and link the name to this guy.
Well,
even though I would have this at the time. Don't get me wrong.
Do you know what they did with him?
Go on.
Do you know where he ended up? He was in Retribution. He's T-Bar.
Okay. Oh, that is a waste, isn't it?
It really is. But you say about him being huge. I think he's about 6'6", 6'7". So he's a big old boy. And I don't want to sound all Vince McMahon or old man yells at cloud. But when you saw the Undisputed Era next to Keith Lee and Dominic Dijakovic, Lee and Dijakovic look like wrestlers to me, like big dudes. And actually, Lee's not that tall. Lee's about 5'10", 5'11". He's about an inch. He's an inch or two shorter than me. But even then, Keith Lee made them look small. But obviously, he's a big, thick guy.
Yeah.
So I've just seen a comment from Marty there. Saying the Monstars as a tag team too were Keith Lee and Dijakovic, which I can completely get behind. Love to see that.
Eventually, we get a few more entrants into the match as well. Because I suppose it doesn't really pick up properly until Cole comes in. We get a few crazy spots and a lot of scrapping and so on. And it's not, don't get me wrong, by no stretch of the imagination is it boring. I'm loving what I'm seeing, but the stuff everyone kind of remembers is when Cole comes down later on, isn't it? Apart from when Lee first comes in and he does that incredible leapfrog spot. And then
just before that, sorry, Bobby Fish actually came in like a house on fire.
Yes. Okay.
This is the best I've seen I remember seeing Bobby Fish looking at NXT. Came in, crushes Ciampa against the cage, ties him up in the ropes, kicks his tits in, breaks down Dominic Dijakovic with strategically placed like kicks and punches. Goes back to beating on Ciampa, who's still stuck. Cuts off Dijakovic, back to Ciampa. Dijakovic gets him by the throat, for the choke slam. And him and Fish and O'Reilly hit total elimination. Strong then hits a backbreaker on Ciampa and then Fish and O'Reilly hit Chasing the Dragon. That it was just a flurry of what the hell is going on and why is this awesome?
I mean,
it was ridiculous.
With Keith Lee, I mean, again, the size thing comes into play here, I suppose. With Keith Lee, when he comes in, as I said, he does the leapfrog spot, which is impressive because the guy is freaking huge. He hits this crossbody as well, which looked incredible. And so he is doing things, as you worded so well, Dan. He's doing things that by rights a guy that size shouldn't be doing. And eventually the numbers game, though, gets on top of him because Undisputed Era do kind of take control for a little bit then. And the visual of that, this huge, massive guy, and then the three smaller guys around him, working, kicking at the legs, punching at the arms, jumping on his back, and so on. That was quite the visual for me as well, because this monster is getting sort of taken down by the numbers game of the smaller guys, all effectively swarming him, so to speak. Yeah,
it was like it's like seeing like bugs devour a carcass or something.
Yeah.
It was something. It's on, and it just the phrase that comes to my mind with this is something like death by 1,000 cuts. So Lee's just getting kicked and punched from every angle, so his muscles are just breaking down, and he has to go down. It would. Like, you get so many stereotypical beatdowns in wrestling, but whenever it happened here, Undisputed Era was so good at making those beatdowns look legitimate.
Yes. Sorry, I couldn't unmute my mic.
Sorry, mate. You starved it out.
Yeah, that's it. I'll cut that from the audio version. No one will know. We then do get Adam Cole making his way down. And Adam Cole obviously gets a reaction from the crowd, as he would. He's the NXT champion and so on. And Cole starts dragging tables out. Now, what gets me about this is, first of all, he's dragging a lot of tables out, which I'm thinking, okay, great, because you want it to be a bit of carnage. You want it to be a bit crazy. That's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
But every time Cole gets another table out, there's another big pop from the crowd.
Yeah, I loved it.
I thought that was great.
Yeah, they were just all in for it. He goes under and gets a table, and the pop is huge. He gets another table. Way, and another table, way. And by then we have like 5 tables there. But what I like about it is he shoves 4 of them in the ring.
Yeah.
And he sets the first one up by the barrier.
Yeah, almost on an angle, doesn't he?
Yeah. First one's on the barrier, 4 in the ring, goes to get in the ring, and bang, Ciampa just barges him out the door and through the table that he set up by the barricade that you'd already forgotten about.
That looked a nasty fall, though, Dan, didn't it? He looked like he didn't quite... It was almost like he was too low by the time he reached the table, and he took it. It just didn't look comfy, did it? I mean, don't get me wrong, going through a table never looks comfy, but I suppose there's more comfier ways of doing it, potentially.
Definitely not like that when the back of your head's going to hit the barrier. Because at the deathmatch tournament I was at the weekend, one of the guys took a spine buster into the corner through a barbed wire board, and I was stood behind the corner where he took the bump. So I saw his ass sort of went through the board, and the back of his head just slammed through the barbed wire into the board, into the turnbuckle, and he had barbed wire in his hair and all sorts.
Jeez.
Yeah. It was gnarly.
And you loved it, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
We get tables galore then, don't we? As we said, we got a broken one on the outside now, but Cole has managed to find his way into the ring. There's tables everywhere. Everyone's brawling. And then we come to a really cool moment where the Undisputed Era are almost like, I suppose, for want of a better term, retreated into the ring away from the door, the furthest from the door. And Team Ciampa, as they're referred to as, only the 3 of them still at this point, they've kind of regrouped and they're slowly crossing the ring, and they're going over the one set of ropes through the little metal middle bit that combines the 2 rings through the net, and as they're doing it, the crowd are just building and building and building. The noise is going up as it's almost like they're slowly stalking their prey, I guess.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like the battle lines have been drawn.
Yes,
and Team Ciampa are the ones to cross the divide.
Yeah, I mean, news for those in the chat and so on is literally just flagged up on my Twitter thing there. Apparently Roderick Strong tonight has requested his release. So
yeah, I'm not surprised. He'll end up in AEW with the rest of them. Yeah, and fair enough. They're a great unit.
Yeah, there we go. So that'd be interesting if he does get his release, and especially if he goes to AEW and all the New Japan stuff they're doing as well. Interesting time, mate. Outside of the WWE, it's an interesting time, I think.
Well, Ring of Honor looming as well.
Very true. Yeah.
As always, I prefer to see him go to Impact to challenge Josh Alexander for the title because they would have one hell of a match.
Yeah. We spoke about Impact the other week, didn't we, and how I need to start watching a lot more of that.
Yeah, you do. Crack on.
Yeah, there we go. I will do.
You will.
No. Effectively, we then get the battle lines drawn, as you said, Dan, and they start brawling.
And then Keith Lee gets a shot in the daddy bags. And Mauro Mauro Ranallo calls it attacking the peninsula south of the equator.
Yeah. I do like Mauro. I'm a bit torn, to be honest. This is the first time I've heard Mauro Ranallo commentate on anything in a long time. Because obviously he's been out of wrestling for a long time. My mindset with him is, as great as he is, and I like the fact that he's unique as well, because to me they're cookie cutter commentators in WWE. They all sound like Michael Cole. They all use the same terminology and so on. Mauro Ranallo is different. I like that. I do think every now and again he needs to tone it back a touch, because if you're shouting and getting overexcited for everything, then when there is something you need to be overexcited about, it's difficult to get that level of excited again when you've been that hyped up throughout the whole contest, if I've explained that well.
If everything's special, nothing's special.
Yes. And is that level of hype and volume and expression all, and look, fair play to the guy, because I've done bits of wrestling commentary. It's bloody hard. It really is a difficult. No, that's incorrect. It's not hard. Doing wrestling commentary is a piece of piss. Doing wrestling commentary well is incredibly difficult. Really, really, really difficult. So people like Ranallo, who are incredibly good at what they do, they have my utmost respect. They genuinely do, because they are fantastic. However, it does sometimes go a little bit too much with him, I think.
Yeah, but I think it's just his sort of general personality, though, isn't it? He is excited, he is excitable, and he is there for it, and he wants to give everything. It's just it's just due, essentially. I do agree he could tone it down slightly at times, but I think he's one of those people that just has what they call a voice that carries. You know, we all know those people. We've all worked with those people who, no matter where they are, you can hear them.
Yes.
And you think, my God, they're shouting. And they're not, it's just a speaking voice. Just happen to be very bloody loud. That leads into the issue that I had sometimes with Ranallo and Beth Phoenix on commentary. Because Beth had to be louder to compensate for Ranallo because she didn't want to get overshadowed.
Okay, yeah.
So then it became like a shouting match. And having Ranallo there as the excitable one is great. Then you've got McGuinness, who's a bit calmer, but still, getting his point across when he can. To add a second shouty voice there into the moments of hype, it never quite gelled for me, which is a shame, because Beth Phoenix, you could see her grow week to week.
Yeah,
commentary. You really could.
I didn't twig who it was, first of all, when I pressed play. And I don't know why, but my mind straight away went to Lita. And for the first minute or two, I was like, is that Lita on commentary? And eventually I twigged it was Beth Phoenix. But yeah, there we go.
You're still thinking Lita and Edge were together from the mid-2000s.
Yeah. Effectively, then we're building up to the big surprise, aren't we? We've had the battle lines be drawn, and they're scrapping, and people are sort of separated to a degree. And there's a lull in the action purposely to allow this moment to happen. And the first thing I noticed is, obviously, the crowd are wild anyway, and as they should be, because this is a fantastic event and this is a fantastic match, and you got some really talented people doing what they do so well. Then the countdown clock comes on, and the crowd go wild for the countdown clock. That was brilliant.
That level of investment is awesome.
Yes,
and you only normally see it at the Royal Rumble, and it was just the anticipation and the countdown, and then nothing.
That was so well done, wasn't it?
And then a bit more nothing.
Yeah, and the Undisputed Era are laughing.
Yeah, and the crowd, a certain section of the crowd start to boo. You can just hear it in the background, the slightest of boos starting to ring in, and then da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na.
Yeah.
Oh, and the pop, that is, I'd forgotten just how huge that was. That is one of the best pops in recent years. probably the last 10 years.
So good. It is so good. And just, I think everything, as a viewer sat at home, I mean, in the arena, it's going to be a case of the music hits, you react. That's the way it is because you're there, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? When you're sat at home, I think you get on this occasion, you get a bit more as well because everyone does so well. The Undisputed Era, their facials are perfect. They look, they're laughing. Oh, he's got no one. There's no one here, and all that sort of stuff. Then the music hits, and they're looking at each other, and they're not overselling it. They're not doing the whole massive open mouth. Oh my god, no, and all that sort of stuff. But they look enough. They look concerned enough. Cole is just brilliant in this moment. I think absolutely brilliant.
He's a combination of scared and pissed off.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard thing to convey, but he managed it, in all fairness to him. And sorry, I'll just break in just 1 second. Just for the audio version, when I listen to it, my brother's had to tap outside because our niece needs him. He's gone to see to Opal. So
okay. No worries. We get a really odd. Well, there's an odd line on commentary around this time from Mauro Ranallo, where people are getting bounced around all over the place, and it's a car crash. Let's be honest. There's so many great moments and so many great spots and stunts and so on throughout the duration of this match. Now, from this moment onwards, it just goes up and up and up and up. At one stage during this, what stood out to me was Ranallo saying it's almost like he's got an idea in his head of the metaphor he wants to put across, but can't quite get it right. He explains that the people in this match are currently wishing their bodies were made of the material that smartphone screens are made from, so they won't break.
But
and I'm just like,
screens break quite a lot.
Yeah, I'm just like, what are you on about?
I'm glad I didn't hear that because I was too busy focused on the match or focused on my kebab.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Just from that wall of sound, though, you get, and it is a wall of sound when he comes out. It's one of the great NXT moments. You get Kevin Owens hits the ring, and he's beating down all Sharon.
Cole always gives good face. Sharon's put in the chat there.
Oh dear! And since we're flagging up comments, I'd just like to point out that I refuse to acknowledge Mr. Willis's obvious attempt at goading me.
He doesn't even pop in and doesn't even say hello. That he's hi lads, I'm here. Just Impact sucks. Drops mic, he puts.
Yeah, just comes in like a troll, wanting to shit on the thing that I enjoy, but
wanting to pick fights. Mr. Willis, really?
Oh dear me.
Sorry, Dan. Carry
on. So he's in there. He's beating down 3 members of the Undisputed Era. He put powerbomb to Fish. Hits a mad shoulder breaker on Kyle O'Reilly. An overhead sleeper suplex to Strong.
I've got that noted down here. Obviously, he's got to be in a sleeper, and he suplexes him. And then Mauro Ranallo describes it as a sleeper suplex, which makes perfect sense because it's a sleeper and a suplex. I get that. I don't think I've seen that before. I was like, what the hell is that? Obviously, a sleeper suplex. But I'm like, whoa, what was that,
It was incredible. And then he, just for good measure, he powerbombs Fish onto Kyle O'Reilly. Turns to Cole. Cole's trying to be a slimy shit heel and talk his way out of it. The crowd are chanting welcome back. Owens does the suck it gesture. Cole gets out of the first stunner and you think, oh God, here we go. The heels are on to beat him down, but then KO catches the kick, it's a stunner. And it's just, apart from probably Bobby Fish, KO has the best entrance into the match.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely ridiculous.
He looks like a star. The reaction from the crowd make you feel like he's a star. Just everything, isn't it?
Yeah, just absolutely awesome. And then we just get into, I hesitate to call it a spot fest because there was a lot of downtime to let you appreciate what had just gone on. And it all starts with Keith Lee and Dominic Dijakovic, who, it's a lot cooler when you call them Keith and Dom.
Keith and Dom.
They launch Roderick Strong over the top rope of the first ring, and he somehow descends in time to go through the top and middle rope of the second ring and just take out the rest of the Undisputed Era.
Yeah. Oh, it's mental. I mean, speaking of Dom, and that's good because I can't pronounce it. I'm just Dom. That's what I'm calling. That one moment as well, we got a great camera angle of it. To be fair, where I think it's Kyle O'Reilly has has somebody in some form. I think it's Keith Lee. He has him in some form of an ankle lock or some form of a leg.
It's a grapevine, yeah.
Yeah, some form of a leg grapevine. Anyway, and Dom is between the two rings and jumps up and does effectively a springboard moonsault from the ropes of the other ring into the next ring. But we don't get the usual WWE hard cam or certain camera angle of it. The camera angle we get is a bit closer, but a bit of a different higher angle. And it just made the move look even better than we're used to, I guess. It was such a great spot.
The angle they shot it at, Dijakovic goes to the top of that rope. He needs that extra space so he can complete the rotation. But then because he's moonsaulting towards the camera, he somehow just gets bigger and bigger as he flips.
Yeah.
It was unreal, but that was in the middle of a sequence that saw Keith Lee crossbodied Fish Strong, Cole, and Dijakovic from the top.
Yeah.
Then just after that, Kyle O'Reilly came off the top rope with a knee drop into Keith Lee's knee to set up the Achilles lock, which was then broken up by the springboard moonsault.
Yeah.
And that was, but we don't know where Bobby Fish came from, but he just landed on Dominic Dijakovic's head to break up the count. And I'm just, again, it's just that flurry of offense.
Oh.
And then they're all down, and you've got time to just take stock and just sit there with your gobble and like, huh?
Yeah. It's insane. It's absolutely mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. This is a move as well that we're going to come to next that divides people greatly, I think. Cole hits a Panama Sunrise in between the two rings on the metal framework, and he hits it on Kevin Owens, and they're kind of fighting back and forth for positioning and so on, and eventually he hits this Panama Sunrise. Now, I understand why it gets a pop, because I suppose it looks good and athletically it's quite and visually quite spectacular. However, I'm not a fan of this because this move kind of takes me out of the match a little bit, because I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, you obviously need so much assistance from the guy you're wrestling.
Yeah, you do. And I think part of the problem is it's been so watered down. When it was Petey Williams hitting a Canadian destroyer to end matches, every once in a while, unreal.
Yeah.
Just brilliant move. And then it became like the DDT. It's become a transition move. It's become just overdone.
Yeah.
Apart from when I saw Ricky Morton pop one off when he was about 62.
Yeah, that was great. Well, you saw Ricky Morton pop one off?
Yeah, Canadian Destroyer. Why? What did you think?
Right, yeah. I don't know, just, you know. Yeah, Canadian Destroyer, fine.
Simon. But the thing is, with this one, it's when KO's trying to get the package pile driver.
Yeah.
And I desperately wanted to see Cole get his head driven into that steel by a package pile driver. Even all these years later, and I know it didn't happen because I'd have remembered it, but, well, maybe not. But there's actual sort of back and forth of them trying to hit the move. And even when Cole's going up for the Panama Sunrise the first time, there's a fight to get Kevin Owens over.
Yeah.
At that point, I have less of a problem with it because it actually looked like a physical effort on Cole's part to make it happen. All too often, it's just quick flip, looks like a bit of a pile driver, done. Oh wait, the guy's already stood up anyway, so what was the point?
No, I understand. Yeah.
But one thing I don't get though with Cole, why he feels the need to jump off the second rope to go boing, boing, flip. All that tells me is that the ring's like a trampoline.
And it isn't.
No, they're really not.
So, has he got like Inspector Gadget knees with like springs in them or something, and that's how he does it? You know?
Who knows?
Didn't think I'd make an Inspector Gadget reference, to be honest, but there we go.
Sharon, you've studied Adam Cole's anatomy. Does he have springs in his knees?
Yeah, let us know in the chat, Sharon. Let us know in the chat. I suppose moving on quickly, then looking very, very carefully, keeping an eye on the clock there. We have tables set up galore. And eventually, one by one, everyone kind of gets eliminated as Cole and Ciampa are kind of fighting in the corner and slowly making their way up the side of the cage. everyone else kind of has their moment that effectively writes them off for the finish, I suppose, Dan.
Yeah. And I've got the sequence if you want it. I've written it
Please
down.
carry on, yeah.
So Ciampa and Cole up on the top, as you said, they're having a fight on top of the cage. Bobby Fish and Roddy Strong have Lee up in the corner, ready for a move through the table. Dijakovic turns up, choke slams Strong through a table that's just got one half set up, and it looks bloody brutal.
Oh, that was
the way it lands, because there was some force behind that choke slam. Looked great.
Really
Kyle
unique,
O'Reilly,
wasn't it?
yeah, and just the fact that the table was only like up on one side, it just made it look worse. I'll say more brutal, I should say. Then Kyle gets a triangle on Dijakovic, so he's got triangle choke on it. Dijakovic powers him up onto the table, and Kevin Owens frog splashes Kyle O'Reilly through the table, but also through Dijakovic's arm.
Yeah.
Effectively taking him out. And the impact of that's obviously taken Owens out as well. And then you get Keith Lee with the spirit bomb on Bobby Fish through the table. So it's just bang, bang, bang. Absolute carnage. We get Ciampa and Cole, they're still fighting on the top. Ciampa's finally on top. He's getting him, he's beating him down. He picks him up for an air raid crash backwards through off the top of the cage through two tables. And the timing and the positioning and the awareness of where you are that it takes to pull something like that off just blew me away. I remember watching it first time again. I watched it with a couple of friends, and we were just, hands on heads. Just what was that?
It was one of those moments where you literally are like, "Oh my god, that was holy shit!" Is the chant, isn't it? And rightfully so. I mean, I'll tell you what gets me as well. I don't like heights, Dan. I never have done my whole life.
Me neither.
And I don't know if it's the same for you, but when I'm up too high, or if I sort of look over the edge of a balcony or something and I don't like it, my feet go funny.
I go a bit like, I feel like my knees feel like they're made of jelly, and I go a bit wobbly.
Okay, my feet go they're like tingly and funny, and it's horrible, when Ciampa had Cole at the top of the cage and had him in position for the move nearly, and they were just sort of battling to get into position, and he was grabbing the sort of support from the roof that actually span in the position that it was in, and they was trying to get, and you can see the feet of Ciampa trying to find a proper location to launch from, so to speak. My feet went funny, as though I was looking over, just sat here on my bed watching. I was like, whoa, I did not like it at all.
I would have. There'd have been a brown stain on Adam Cole's shirt if that had been me.
Oh man, yeah, we've got a couple of things very briefly in the chat here. Sharon confirming that there are no springs in his knees, but they are strangely paler than his thighs, apparently. Okay, and Scottish
knee pads.
Yeah, and Scottish Danny says the chants were "Please don't die" at one stage, which is brilliant as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's basically the finish. Ciampa collapses on top of Cole. We get the 3 count. His brilliant music hits. End of the match. End of the show. What a contest!
Yeah, unreal. I'd forgotten how good this match was. Like I said, I saw it come up, won the poll. I knew I'd seen it. I knew it was good. I'd forgotten that it was this good.
Oh, totally. I said to Sharon before I put this on, I remember this being great, but I'm worried now if I watch it back, it's not going to be as good as my mind makes it out to be, because I couldn't remember. I just remember, this match was good. I can't remember why. So when I put it on, and the beginning was, shall we say, a bit slower than the end, obviously, because ultimately they paced it brilliantly. I'm watching the first few minutes and I'm thinking, maybe I have remembered this wrong. But no, absolutely. I mean, we might as well just get straight to it, Dan. Out of 10, our ratings, what are you thinking?
It's one of the better WarGames matches for me that there's ever been.
Okay.
And there's maybe a bit of recency bias in that. And obviously, I like the majority of people in it. Even though, I've said I have my problems with Adam Cole, whatever, he's still very, very good. I've seen better matches. I've seen matches that I prefer, but this, for just the how well it was paced, the ridiculousness of the finish, but that was somehow 4 crazy table spots, but didn't feel like too much.
Yeah.
And the moment of Kevin Owens coming in, it gets a solid 8 out of 10 for me.
Okay, yeah.
It's like I said, I reserve very few matches for a 10.
Yeah.
And there's not that many get a 9. So about an 8, if on a generous day, 8.5. But yeah, solid 8 out of 10 easily for this. Really, really loved it.
See, there you go. Look, for me, you say generous day, 8.5. I must be feeling generous, mate, because 8.5 is what I've got written down.
That's worrying. I must be part of this like science mags like hive mind that's developing.
I mean, for me, and again, I'm going by memory. You know, I'm going by because I've not watched a lot of this stuff for a long, long time. So for me, I always go back to the classic War Games matches and thinking 92 was the best War Games I'd ever seen. I take the modern War Games. I almost have it sectioned away as being a different match because it is different. In the original War Games, you had to quit, you had to submit. That was it, you know. And you had the roof on the cage for spots off the top and all that sort of stuff. Here, if you escape the cage, you lose. That wasn't how it worked in the original War Games. And there's pinfalls as well. But the wrestling's moved on so much. So in my head, still 92 is one of the best War Games I've ever seen. But this I love, and it's right up there. So I think an 8.5 for me is probably about right, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could easily see why people would give it a 10. Yeah. I can easily see why people would absolutely adore this match and go back to it again and again.
Mm-hmm.
It is that good. But like I say, I knows what I like and I like what I knows.
Sharon in the chat there saying she can agree with that. Knock 2 points off because Cole didn't win. Not biased at all.
When you about Cole not winning, you picked it, Shah.
Yeah, that's true. It's your choice. I didn't think of that. There we go. So then, where shall we all head next week? Whether it be me and another guest host. I don't think Magsy is due back just yet. I think we've got another week away. I've got somebody who wants to come on the show. Maybe it'll be a bit of a surprise. We'll see how we go. But where do we go next week? Dan, what is your link from this match to put into the poll for next week?
I've actually got a few links between this and the match I want to go to.
Okay.
You don't. I messaged you beforehand just to get an idea of certain things. You don't do a lot of NXT on Chain Wrestling, so I want to stick to NXT, and I want to stick with NXT Takeover. And the third link is Kevin Owens, because in 2015 at NXT Takeover Brooklyn, the very first NXT Takeover Brooklyn, Kevin Owens took on Finn Balor in a ladder match for the NXT title. Okay. Now, I don't know. I've mentioned this many times. I was lucky enough to be in New York that weekend and attend that event. It was an incredible match, but it wasn't the best match of that night. Because if there's other things that another thing that I've noticed about chain wrestling is that it tends to be a bit of a sausage fest. So I want to go to NXT Takeover Brooklyn 2015 and Bayley versus Sasha Banks.
Oh, and what a match that is.
Yeah.
What a match that is. I've covered that for a podcast, probably going back about a year ago, maybe. And I hadn't seen it in a long time. And I remember watching it, and I ended up having to watch it twice because the first time I watched it, I didn't make any notes because I was just engrossed in what they were doing. It was that good.
Yeah. I like I said, I was in the arena for that. We'd had me and my brother, by the end of the show, we'd been up for about 24 hours with the travel. Got off the plane, got to the hotel, a couple of hours, got over to the Barclays Centre, and just absolutely blown away by that.
And that's the first Takeover Brooklyn, isn't it? Is that correct?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay. So Bayley versus Sasha Banks from the NXT Takeover Brooklyn event. What a shite that is. What a shite. Okay.
Which Lex Luger match are you going to?
Well, I was going to say, it'll surprise absolutely nobody that I'm going to put up something from a little bit further back in time as my option. And the link is very, very straightforward. The link is very, very simple. The link is WarGames. I'm intrigued now because, as I said, I remember WarGames matches and so on, and I love a WarGame. Bloody love a WarGames was what me and Sharon were saying last week. Bloody love a WarGames. And this was fantastic. I want to see how it compares now to what I loved from back in the day. So I'm going to pick my favorite War Games match from what I think is the best. I may watch it back and be wrong, but I think War Games 92 is the best of the old school War Games. So I'd like to see how it compares to what, in my mind, here is potentially one of the best of the modern day War Games. So 1992, from the Wrestle War pay-per-view, you have the team of Sting's squadron, which was Barry Windham, Dustin Rhodes, Nikita Koloff, Ricky Steamboat, and Sting. And they are facing the Dangerous Alliance. And that is Arn Anderson, Bobby Eaton, Larry Zbyszko, Rick Rude, and Steve Austin. And on the outside of the ring, you also have Medusa and Paulie Dangerously, and all the shenanigans with shoes for weapons and the big mobile phone. And Medusa at one stage ends up on the top of the cage being chased by Sting. And it's just absolute carnage, but it is bloody fantastic. Sting Squadron versus the amazing Dangerous Alliance. I mean, there's a lot of talent in that ring as well. Wyndham, Steamboat, Sting, Arn Anderson, Rick Rude, so much there. I think this is potentially, Dan, one of the most difficult polls we've had.
It's a competitive one. I do like that. Now you've given me the lineups. I remember that 92 War Games, and it was really bloody good.
Really good. Really, so much talent in the match. Just
and Barry Windham.
Hey, Barry Windham. Can't beat a bit of Barry, mate. Can't beat a bit of Barry. What a legend.
Barry Windham, Barry Manilow, Barry White.
What? Any Barry.
Barry Chuckle.
Oh my God. Jinx. Okay then, Dan. So, yeah, that's it. That is your choices, for next week's poll. We have Bayley versus Sasha Banks at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. And to me, I remember that getting all the stars back in the day as being absolutely fantastic. Or we have Wrestle War 92, War Games, Sting Squadron versus the Dangerous Alliance. As always, you can vote on the poll when it comes out later in the week after the audio version has been released. So that's that. Thank you to everybody in the chat. It's been fantastic again. Thank you to everybody who's interacted on Twitter and via WhatsApp and everyone else for our non-wrestling topic. Before we depart, Dan, do you want to let everybody know whereabouts they can find you, mate? Because I've jinxed you, is that it? What am I supposed to do then? I've said your name.
Full name.
Oh, Dan Griffin.
There you go, that'll do.
Okay. Was that how you did it? When we were at school, it was literally just had to say their first name.
No, we had to do full names.
Oh, you're much more formal where you were from then.
I don't know, I think they just didn't like that on The Simpsons.
Okay.
Anyway, you can find me on Twitter at DanGriffin21, usually tweeting about wrestling that's a minimum 6 weeks out of date or movies that are 25 years out of date. You can hear me on Unbooking the Territory with my co-host UTT Rob, going through the firsts and lasts of professional wrestling. You can also hear us on our side project, UTT, Unbooking the Tankatory, which is going through the lives and times and the ups and downs of the career of Tank Abbott. It's a niche within a niche within a niche, but we have a lot of fun. You can find those on Twitter at UTT Podcast and at UTT Tank, respectively. And you can find me on the Doctor Who pod with the one and only Cy Powell, who's just, damn it, I got it wrong, that way.
Yeah, I do that all the time as well.
Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. But Cy will give you all the details for that, I'm sure.
Yes, I will indeed. First of all, Dan, thank you so much for stepping in this week, filling in the hot seat on Chain Wrestling Live. I appreciate you're a very, very busy man with your shows and all the hours you are plying into work. So thank you so much for taking the time to sit in this week for us. We've had some brilliant guest co-hosts. Matt Willis, fantastic. Sharon was awesome. You've been brilliant. Hopefully, though, no disrespect to anybody, hopefully Mr. Magsy is back very soon. Mags, we love you and we miss you, my friend. Hopefully everything will be good. Enjoy the last party of break, and hopefully we will have you back here very, very soon.
It's been an honour keeping his digital seat warm. It really has. Thank you so much for having me on for my first live Chain Wrestling.
No, I've enjoyed it, mate. I've enjoyed it. You can find me on Twitter at SJP Words, and if you rather the Book of Face, there is a group there, SJP, all the shows and info. Both of those points of contact, you get links to everything I'm involved in. That is the Doctor Who pod, for example, like Dan mentioned, with our good friend here, Mr. Dan Griffin, looking back on old episodes of Doctor Who. That is current to the end of season 1 in the next week or two. But it will be repeated in full, the whole of the first full season, via another network. More details on that to come. And season 2 won't be too far away either. We have the waiting room if time travel is your thing and the Doctor Who pod is not enough for you. The waiting room is looking at Quantum Leap, 1 episode at a time, with our good friend Mr. Benny Mac. Out every Friday. Nitro Nights, if wrestling is more your taste, with Scottish Danny looking back on WCW from the first episode of Monday Nitro. 1 episode at a time, through all the pay-per-views, the funders, and all the nonsense that came out of that company. And lastly, I suppose, but most importantly, we have Chain Wrestling live on a Monday night via Radio Techers, and the podcast version later in the week. You can find that show at Chain_Wrestling. But again, at SJP Words on Twitter, links to all the stuff I do there. Dan, it has been an absolute bloody pleasure, my friend.
I've really enjoyed it. I absolutely loved it. I'm really glad I actually managed to get to do this. It was a little bit touch and go over the weekend, as you know, with certain things that happened.
Yeah,
but it's been a great time and a much needed sort of blowout and good time at the start of a difficult week.
Great stuff. Thank you again for doing it, mate. I cannot put into words how much I've appreciated yourself, Sharon, Matt Willis stepping in. It's been awesome. It's been awesome. But again, Magsy, we love you. We miss you. Hopefully you'll be back very soon. I'm off now to go and jump off my sofa to see if I've got springs in my knees and if I can bounce and flip around just like Adam Cole to try and impress my wife. I will speak to you all again soon. Bye-bye.